Hey everyone. So this demo is being used in two classes because you guys are both doing grid-based projects, and I am doing it because you absolutely must show me that your grid is set up before you move on in the project. And so I wanted to make sure that I was really clear. So the two classes that this relates to is intermediate graphic design. This is your second project. You will be doing a magazine design. And publication design, this will be your first project, and you are doing an annual report for a company, and we'll talk more about that for you guys. A magazine's easier to understand, but an annual report isn't. So we are going to be using the page sizes for intermediate graphic design. Publication design, you actually have control of the page sizes. But I have chosen a standard size for a magazine for this, so we're going to work from that. And so our size is 10 3/4 by 9 inches. So if I open up InDesign and go up to File, and I know you can't see that, down to New, Document. The first thing I'm going to do is come over here and move this to inches. And then you can see that I've actually got this already set up. It's 9 inches by 10.75. I've actually made this demo a couple of times. Now in your instructions, I give you 10 3/4, and then I also show you what the decimal is, intermediate. But one of the things that I wanted you to know is if you ever needed to find out the fraction to decimal conversion, there are tons of conversion charts, or it will convert it for you. So that's something to know. And the next thing to know is we're going to be doing facing pages. We're going to be doing spreads. That's two pages together, like as if you were reading a book or a magazine. So we'll be doing facing pages. That should be clicked. Intermediate, you are doing you're doing 8 pages for spreads. So that being said, it says 7 here. We actually need 9 pages. And the reason why is because the first page always comes up on the right-hand side, and so you don't get a full 2 pages the way InDesign starts the document. And there are workarounds for that, but it's just easier, in my opinion, to ignore that. Publication design, you will actually have more pages than they will. So we'll go ahead and start down. We're just going to ignore columns and gutters. We're going to come down to margins, and we're going to zero these out. The reason why we're zeroing it out is because we're actually going to be pulling our margins in Masterpages. And then we don't have to worry about any of this. Although if you want, since this is bleed, we could put 0.125, which is going to give you a bleed on all of your documents. And then we'll hit create. And you can see that that red line is the bleed. You can see that this first page is a single page on the right, as I said, and then we hit the 2 pages. And so this is your 2-page spread, and again the red line is your bleed. So to start the process, what we need to do is we need to actually be working on a master. You can see that I'm on page 2-3. It's blue here, it's blue here. If I come up here, you can see that this is blue. So make sure that you're working on your master pages when you do this, because if you don't, you're going to waste a lot of time that can't easily be copied and pasted into this master page. What Masterpages does for you is that it creates this document or these guidelines that show up on all of these. So everything I'm going to do on here is going to show up on all of these pages. All right. So first things first, we always start with a 1/2 inch on the outsides of the pages, and we'll be looking at these as 2-page spreads. So we'll be going ahead and giving a 1/2 inch there. Those are the outsides of your pages. And then the tops, typical for a 1/2 inch. Now I'm giving you what is standard proportions for a page, but they can vary greatly. You want to make sure that you have enough so that if your page moves at all when printing, that it's not going to destroy your design. But you definitely want to make sure that you don't have too much, because then you're creating a document that doesn't need all of that paper. All right, so the other thing that you're doing is we're going to do the interior margins. Now those are different, and we're going to be pretending that this is a perfect bound magazine. That means that it's glued. A saddle stitch is stapled, and that usually uses very flimsy paper and it's easily flops down, whereas I can't believe I'm blanking on this. Whereas a perfect bound is glued. And that's, we're looking at doing a high-end magazine for the most part, so we'll be going with a larger gutter. When I bring this up, because if you were doing a saddle stitch, you could probably get away with a 1/2 inch because the paper is so floppy. When you are doing something perfect bound, you lose a little bit of viewing area in here. All right, so the other thing that we have to do is the bottom. Now the bottom also usually gets more than the outsides. And the reason why is because just like if you were framing something, you would give it more space because it looks smaller because something is over the top of it. So we're going to do 3/4 of an inch here. So we did 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 3/4, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 3/4. All right. Now we need to decide how to break this up. Now, a lot of you guys are going to choose to do a pretty simple 2-column or 3-column. And if you do that, you will break it up slightly differently, or you could choose a modular grid. I'm going to show you one side on one, or one way on one side and one way on another. And the reason why is then you'll see the math that gets involved in doing a 3-column versus a 2-column, and then whatever you end up doing, you just are going to need to do the math for. So the 2-column's pretty easy. This is the 0 point right here. So if I pull this down to my margins, it's telling me that I have 7 3/4 inches, which is perfect because that means that I have a 3.5 inch not margin, a 3.5 inch column and a 1/4 inch gutter, which is pretty standard. So I'm going to pull 3.5, and then I'm going to pull a 1/4 inch, and so this will be 3.5 as well. If we pull this over here, you can see that, oh, it's not. Must have done something wrong. Oh, you know what? It's gonna be actually gonna be 3 1/4 and then 1/4 inch. Sorry guys. So now we have 3 3/4, and then if we pull this over here, you can see that we have 3 3/4. All right. So we'll go ahead and do this for this side as well. Pull this guy, and we'll pull from this area 3 3/4 and then 1/4 inch. And we won't check those. We'll just know that they're right because they were right on the other side. All right, so that's one way of doing a master page, a simple 2-column. I'm going to actually show you how to do a second master page. And so I'm going to hit Masterpages, new master page. And this is just going to be called B. It's 2-column, or it's a 2-page as well. So I'm going to double click on this. If I click on here, you can see that my margins are here. If I click on here, you can see there's nothing. If I click on here, you can see that all of my margins from A master have shown up. And you can see that this says A, which is in reference to it being using the A margin or the A masters. So we're going to really quickly go ahead and set up the same things that we did before. I had to zero out by double clicking real quick, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to get us back where we should be. And then we'll work on this new option. Now, it's not uncommon for a magazine to actually have multiple master pages so that they can go from a 2-column to a 3-column, you know, depending on the kind of article they're doing. So this time, we're going to look at this same information. We have 3/4, but this time we're going to take a 1/2 inch away from our sizes. So we'll have 7 1/4 inches, and then we'll have between each of the columns, we'll have 2 gutters. Gutters are the space between columns, but also gutters are this area. All right, so 7.25 divided by 3, and I'm just using my calculator to do this. Let me get it. I didn't have this set up because I didn't think I was going to do this. So 7.25 divided by 3 equals 2 and 41. So this is a really great example of where we need to come in and put in our we need to work with fractions, and so decimal to fraction is what we're going to need. And so right now we're going to put in 0.41, and we're going to hit calculate, and it's going to give us our fraction. So that's not helpful. All right, you guys, so I went and found a fractions to decimals conversion chart. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to ignore that it's 41, and I'm just going to come to the closest option, which is 0.40. We have 0.41. So we can see that that's 1330 seconds, which should be interesting. All right. So now, obviously, you know that if you don't want to do math, you don't want to do a 3-column or a multi-column. All right. So let's go ahead and look in here. So we are looking at almost a 1/2 inch at 0.41. So what we need to do is we need to zero out on this line, and we know that our column is going to be 2.41 or 2 inches and 1330 seconds, which is a pretty small fraction. So we can see that this is 1/2 inch, this is 1/4 inch, this is 1/8 inch. And so we're really zooming in now so that we can get those small percentages. All right, you guys, so I took a moment there so I could reassert myself. And you can see that I have gotten down to 1/16. So 30 second would be half of that. So this is the 2-inch. So this is one 30 second, 2 30 second, 3 30 second, 4 30 second, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oops. This is the problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So just right past the 3/8 marker is where our guide will be. So we're going to pull in. All right. Right. Wait a minute. I said right past 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So it's 1 tick before 3/8. All right, so now we have to do that all over again. But before we do that, we're going to zero in and we're going to give our 1/4 of an inch margin. And then we're going to pull that again. And again, we're going to go to the 2. We're going to zoom in like we did before. Let's make sure, oh, we did. We're going to zoom in right here, right like we did before. And then come right over here, keep zooming until we see 3/8. And so now we know we just are going to do 1 tick before 3/8. And we'll zoom out. Oops. Looks like I managed to mess that up. Right here. One more. So here's 2, 1 tick before 3/8. And that should, oops, all kinds of problems here today. We'll zoom out. Perfect. Now we can zero out on that guy, and we will bring our 1/4 of an inch margin. We didn't do a 1/4 of an inch over here. So what we will need to do is we will need to bring this a little bit wider and make this a little bit smaller, and that should get us where we need to be. So we would do the same thing on this side, but this is a great thing because you can see a 3 column here and a single here. I'm going to pull my B down here. So you can see that our A's have that first one that we set up. If we click on the B, you can see that this has the second one that we've set up with the 3 column and the single page. So this allows you all kinds of options. The most important thing is getting to the point where you make the right decisions for your margins and you get your gutters in there. You have to be using this. I will be checking it later, I believe next week. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this video. You have to use this video and set this up, and you have to get the okay before you move on to the next section. If you don't, you're not going to be able to move on to the next section of the project, which is putting visuals and type in. All right, thank you.